This is going into Stones River. And take a look at this army. I have a unit now that has over 100 efficiency. That's really neat. And it has 3 stars. And your units keep getting higher and higher numbers, by the way. You just see 100, but you can have an infinite level, I guess. And in Stones River, which is a great battle, I get 4 to 1. But the big news for me is I get 53, almost 54,000 casualties, which is a huge number of casualties. So I have 3 corps commanders, which is all you can take into this battle. All 3 have 3 stars. And first corps is outstanding. Second corps is looking really good. Every unit has a star. So that's great. And third corps isn't bad either. One of the things about this battle is that you can only take, and this is why it's really important to look at the instruction screen before you go to the battle. You can only take 20 units per corps, which is a little weird, but you can only take 20. So putting more than 20 into a corps is really pointless. And even then, you're not going to get all 20 at one time. You're going to get maybe 1st and 2nd Division, and then 3rd Division comes in as a reinforcement, and 4th Division only comes in on the 2nd day. Something like that. So, it's really important to know what units you're going to get in a battle and when. And if it says 20, only put 20. So I've done that. So we've knocked down the enemy size of their force pool down pretty nicely, but we're really going to take a bite out of it in this battle. So 20, 40, 60 units, 114,000, 244 guns. Yeah, I'm starting to build a really nice army. I like this army at this point. Good weapons. You might have noticed there were a lot of reboard farmers, but that's okay. Reboard farmers are as good as 1842s, and hey, cheap and free. So those are the kind of weapons I like, the really cheap ones and the really free ones. So I deployed the army. I skipped over that part, and as you know, in this battle, you get hit on the right flank. And usually I don't get knocked out of the woods by the AI. But in this battle, the AI does a really good job. And what I just did is I just highlighted everything to see how far my infantry, to see what infantry units were highlighted. And now I'm selecting all the infantry units. And I am setting them all to run. So I can do that. I can set all the infantry units to run from the control panel. And I'm detaching skirmishers. Because I see the enemies coming forward with artillery. And if you're going to lead with artillery, I'm going to send detached skirmishers out to take a shot at you. And I get some shots on his cap, which is always a good thing. And I want to get as many shots as I can on this exposed artillery. And also drive it back, because if I can drive his artillery back, it'll stay back. If I don't want his artillery to sit this close to my infantry, I want them to back off a distance where they will be less effective. So what I like to do is detach skirmishers and then have them run out and take a couple shots at something, and then fall back behind my lines and then reintegrate them back into the unit by hitting the T button. So usually I detach skirmishers by hitting a hotkey, and then I reattach them with a hotkey. So having them fall back is also better than having them turn around and turn their back to the enemy, and skirmishers will fall back like any other unit. So you hit the F key, the hotkey, to have them fall back. And then once they fall back behind the line, you just hit the hotkey to have them reattach. And it works out well. So the important thing is never, ever turn your back to the enemy. So the enemy is going to attack really aggressively the right flank, which is what the enemy does. And this attack is surprisingly good. This is usually it's not even close. My line holds, and I have I have plenty of artillery, good units, and it's usually not even close. But this time, it almost breaks my line, and that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. And I have to really respond efficiently to this, or my line will get broken and he will bust through my infantry line and get into my artillery. And I don't want that to happen. So this Battle of Stones River, which is a great battle, is divided into three parts. Part one is hold the line, where you defend and you try to inflict casualties on the enemy. Part two is counterattack and destroy the Confederate left. And the third phase is destroy the entire army. So what happens is it's a scripted event where no matter what you do, you're going to be taken back to the fortifications to the far left rear of your line. And that's okay. And from that position, if we do well on the first day, the second day is finish them up. So it's a lot of troops. I think the enemy has about 70,000 troops in total. That's a lot of troops. And it's just going to take a very long time to wipe them out. And we do. We do a really good job of, this army does a really good job of wiping them out. It just takes a while. It just takes a long time. So that skirmisher was way too far out there, and that was clearly a mistake. Skirmishers take a lot of micromanagement, and you'll notice that I don't play with sharpshooters, and that's because they really take a lot of micromanagement. I have played this battle with a sniper unit, and the sniper unit easily got over 1,000 kills. This is a perfect battle for a sniper unit. Lots of open area, lots of opportunity to get a massive number of kills, and it's just absolutely ideal. But man, it takes just an enormous amount of micromanagement, more than any other unit. Okay, so here's the beginning. Wave after wave of Confederate units, roller skate battalions, super fast, hard charging units, and staying out of melee with these guys is quite a challenge. So I end up hitting fall back quite a lot. And the other thing I like to do is I like to take these detached skirmishers and have them behind the infantry for when my units do finally get caught in melee. And since I'm right up against the artillery, it's really getting to the point I can't retreat anymore. So I retreat right up to the artillery, and that's great because I'm going to get canister fire on the attacking enemy, but it's dangerous too because, as you know, if you get caught in melee, he starts to bleed through your unit and through your unit, and my artillery can get caught in melee, and that's a disaster. Yep, hit fall back and then fire again. So yeah, so far, falling back and the aggressive use of detached skirmishers has worked really well. And I want to get a solid line somewhere. I want to get a solid line of infantry supported by artillery. And then I want to have the infantry rest before I counterattack. So yeah, but at this point, I'm really concerned about just holding the line. So I'm having detached skirmishers actually charge to stop the Confederate charge. You know, I just happen to have the detached skirmishers handy, and I have them charge to stop the charge while I pour infantry fire and canister into them. I'm also having you can also hit notice fall back for the artillery. That's really useful to do that because it means you don't limber up and move and then unlimber. So hitting fall back for the artillery is really good in a situation like this. And notice they do fall back at a pretty good speed. So, you know, I wanted to get the artillery out of there so they didn't get caught in melee. Now I have more room to fall back, and I know that my infantry can't hold that line. There's too much pressure on it. And as soon as you tell your artillery to fire at a target, they'll stop falling back. So, yeah, that actually worked out really well. My detached skirmishers took some knocks, but the line held. By the way, holding this objective is meaningless. It has no impact at all on the game. The only purpose that objective has is the enemy will attack to take it. That's the only purpose of it. I'd like to point out again that I have all my units on run, and the reason isn't for them to actually run anywhere. The reason is so that they will turn and fire faster. Okay, so that unit that I just clicked on there, I'm having trouble controlling him. He's doing that shift around in the line thing, and I finally got him to settle down. Having your units shift around is a complete disaster for your line, so finally got him to settle down. Okay, this is the point where I have a unit that is right on the edge of breaking. Yeah, that unit is in trouble, and that creates a hole in the line, and I don't have a reserve. So, yeah, big problem. And one of my detached skirmishers, looks like it was one of my detached skirmishers was destroyed. So, in the process of doing all that, okay, he recovers, and I get him back into the line. Get this guy backed up so he's not in melee. And looks like I'm going to have to do something with my artillery. Always protect the artillery. Always, always, always protect the artillery. Okay, and there's another unit caught in melee. And hopefully my units firing into that guy will make him back off. So yeah, the line is just holding on by a thread, and my unit in the middle of my line is about to rout again. And right behind that unit, artillery. This position here on this hill is one of the best positions in the entire campaign. I can't tell you how much I enjoy fighting here. There's kind of a valley, and then it's all uphill. The enemy moves very slowly. Some good infantry and artillery on the top, on this position on the top of this hill, can get extraordinary kills, an extraordinary number of kills in the course of the battle. And man, it's a perfect location for good artillery. And anybody you put there is just going to rack up the kills. Yep, that's an example of keep the supply wagon moving. Okay, I'm bringing up units to try to plug the hole that's about to happen in my line, because I don't think that infantry unit is going to hold. So I'm thinking about how far I have to fall back to save the position at this point. But the rest of the line is holding just fine, and I can fall back a little bit more in my center, and that'll be just fine too. I don't think I need to hold the wood line. That's not crucial. Actually, I don't need to hold anything. I can keep falling back my right and center all the way to the last flag, and create a line just along the wood line, facing where my right used to be. There are all kinds of positions in there I can hold. I see at least 2 lines before I get back to my final flag. So, um, yeah, I can fall back in many stages, and have in different battles. I've experimented with falling back to the next wood line, and you can hold that line really easily. So right now, though, I'm really interested in saving my artillery, making sure the artillery is not overly exposed. Yep, notice how I'm shrinking the line, and I'd like to get that unit that kept flashing white to get behind the line and rest. Man, his morale is down to nothing. Just absolutely got to get that unit to recover. Keep the wagon moving. Now that's a pretty good line. And I've I've shortened the line, and now basically um, I've allowed the artillery to fall back a little bit more, and the infantry unit that had low morale because it'd been in too many battles, it's protected, and it will recover a bit, and then it'll act as the reserve for this line. So I'll let it recover its morale, and then I'll swap it out with the next unit that starts to lose morale, and give it a break. And that's kind of what I like to do with my line in a long battle, is rotate units on the front line um, with fresh units. That allows units to recover condition. And what I'll do at the end of this phase is actually I'll actually rest the entire right flank of the Union Army before counterattacking. And all of my units will be at 100% morale and 100% condition. So I did capture a Confederate supply wagon, which is really handy. The only bad thing about the position on the top of that hill is the enemy doesn't attack there enough in this battle. The entire battle, I have my fingers crossed that the enemy will just keep attacking, and he is going to attack, but I really want him to throw his entire army at that location, because it's just like shooting fish in a barrel. Okay, the right flank is stabilized. That's really good. I want to start to shift troops to the left, particularly artillery. I can start to return some of these detached skirmishers to their parent unit, so that would be good. And to the center of my line, it's really interesting that I'll stand there all day and let a skirmisher unit exchange fire with an infantry unit in the open. That'll work out fine. And look at that, 113 kills to 20. Yeah, we can do that all day. And again, keep the supply wagon moving. spreading out my infantry, spreading out my artillery on this hilltop. Yeah, in this battle, guaranteed the enemy is going to attack that location. And great. And when they do, I want there to be a reception committee, and I want to get this really good 24-pound howitzer unit on top of that hill so it can rack up a whole bunch of kills. It's just a huge opportunity. And here they come, the first of them. So I had the artillery turned off because there weren't any units nearby, and long-range fire is a waste of ammo. Yeah, but now the enemy is attacking, so great. Well, phase 1 of the battle is just about over. We're in very, very good shape. And the attacks on the what really is the left right now, the Union left, is beginning, and hopefully the enemy will throw a massive numbers of troops at this position because it's an opportunity to do a whole bunch of damage. And we have a lot of troops to take out. It's interesting, the bar at the top of the page. We have a slight majority on the battlefield right now. So that's really good too. So at this point, the battle's pretty much won. I could just sit on the defensive the rest of the battle and rack up a better than 4-to-1 kill ratio, probably. I've done that before, where I just sat quietly on defense and let the enemy attack my position and inflict casualties. And that works out just fine. You can do that. You can do that from now till the timer runs out. And the enemy will attack, and you can inflict casualties and just get experience. But the objective in this playthrough is to inflict as many casualties as I possibly can on the enemy and see how that affects the manpower pool. And so I'm going to go after the enemy in this phase so that the next day I can wipe out the entire army. And very few units survive. They're saved by the clock. So, yeah, but what I need to do at this point is make sure that my army's in position for the counterattack, and I need to get change my line, shift my line, stabilize it, and get my units rested. While on the left, this is just a party on the left. I mean, I've done this many, many times, and this is just a party. So, yeah, this is a good time. The army's in great shape right now. Have a nice solid line of infantry supported by artillery. There's no chance that I could lose the battle now. Getting more artillery on top of the hill. The hardest part that I found here is there's so many infantry and artillery units on the top of this hill that if any of them start to slide around, it just scrambles the entire position. So, and artillery will do that too. Until artillery will turn to fire at a unit, and in the process of doing that, make the unit next to it start to shift and relocate, and so you just have to stay on top of that. Oh, there's a unit that just evaporated. Enemy unit just wiped out and shattered, so that's nice. Okay, I got surprised there. I advanced to hit 3-on-1, and my units walked into a buzzsaw, so that didn't work out. Should have led with skirmishers, but I thought there was only one unit there. The other two were hidden, and got surprised, and then fell back to just get out of there. This is just a very good time. And this can go on for quite a while. Look how that artillery is just racking up kills. You want to put rifled units on top of that hill. 1842s, not a good idea. You want units with at least Lorenzes up there, maybe Enfields, 1855s. So you want units that have some range, or that are more effective at range. So, because the enemy will never make it, or should, it's very unlikely units will make it into melee. And if they do, they're just going to take canister and rout. So what you want is units who can get kills at distance up on that hill. So, and only about 3, maybe 4 units can occupy the front line up there. So make sure your best units are to the front, and you can have 1842s to the rear, because the units to the rear are only going to get shots if the frontline units get into melee. So their job is to defend the artillery. And again, keep the supply wagons moving. And not stress enough how important that is. And especially in this battle, I think that you come in the second day. In some battles, you come in on day 2 or 3, and your units are topped up with ammo. I don't think in this battle that happens. And, I played it with a lot of different patches. And in most of the games I've played, you don't get a supply wagon on day 2. So one of the things I always make sure is that my units are all topped up and full of supply at the end of day 1, so that I come in on day 2 and my units start with a full load of supply. So this is a really good battle to make sure that your units are plenty of ammo the entire time, but especially at the end of day 1. Man, it's only 9 a.m. In this battle, so there's a lot of time left. And I just turned that artillery unit off because it doesn't have anything to shoot at. Yeah, I got my artillery out of the right flank because there's nothing happening over there and I don't need it. And when I attack, the artillery isn't going to be able to stay up. What I need is, when I begin my counterattack, which I'm not going to do right at this minute, it's going to be actually in a bit. When I begin my counterattack, the line's going to move so fast, the artillery is going to be out of it. So I'm getting my artillery to a place where it can be useful. And the right flank, there's no use to it. I'm having my cav basically go on a Jeb Stuart recon. If I can take some shots at some artillery, that would be good. If I can round up some supply wagons, that would be good. The number one purpose of my cav is to pick up supply wagons. So anyway, that is a recon that I'm doing to see how much is out there, how much is on the flank before I begin the attack, see if there are any hidden positions or fortifications. Well, I already know what the positions are, and what the terrain looks like because I've played this battle many times. But it's a really good idea if you're going to launch an attack like this to one, rest the units that are going to attack. And here I'm swapping out units. So a unit that had been on the front line, I have it fall back and I swap out some with some fresh units and let them rack up some experience. So yeah, swapping out units and keep the supply wagons moving. Yeah, no supply wagons. And I'm really surprised there's nothing. Look at that big gap where there's nothing. No enemy units at all. So the enemy position is really interesting. There's a like an enemy core on their far left, and then there's nothing in the center. And so that sets us up for a real opportunity, which we'll see in the next part. So stay tuned for part 2.